What's been out of kind of the core things that we talk about, what's been something that's kind of popped up the most for you in the last week or so?
The definition of insanity. People want different results, but refuse to do anything different.
Mhm.
Kind of goes to our growth club and self-mastery. So, maybe the conversation is what is self-mastery? I mean, I've gotten how many emails? I don't have time. I've gotten, I just don't have time to do this. And I want more. I want a better business. I want a more harmony or balance, but I refuse to do anything different. I refuse to say no. I refuse to schedule myself in my calendar to do work, on strategy, tactics, and actionable items. I'm 100% answering the phone. I'm always, customers can't know that something else is more important. All of these things are coming full circle right now. And it's interesting because it's a definition of insanity. Everybody wants something different. What's that old cliche? Who likes change? See a show of hands. All right. Who wants change? They all point at somebody else. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because there's so many things that tie back into that. The first thing that came to mind at the first part of what you were saying is just that understanding that formula for change. Their resistance clearly is much greater than their dissatisfaction and or the clarity of vision that they have of where they need to be. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Now the second piece of it on where are my values at on my belief system around clients and can't let anyone else think that something else might be more important than a client or that type of thing, then we can tie back into identity iceberg. But the formula for change, identity iceberg were the two big things that came to mind when you were
so we have
making those comments.
Formula for change is dissatisfaction times vision plus first steps has to be greater than the resistance. So dissatisfaction is, what we've talked about, no time, right? That's the dissatisfaction. No time for themselves, no time to make a change, no time to work on the business. So,
which I would argue that it's not just no time, that's a component of it, but for real change to happen, it's what is that no time causing? What's the real dissatisfaction that's happening in your life because you feel you have no time?
All right, so say that again, Tanner.
So no time is a kind of top layer of it. I feel I have no time, but what does that no time really, what is the impact of that? How is that really playing out in your life? Where is that really causing dissatisfaction? Maybe it's as simple as I'm missing out with time with my kids. Maybe it's I'm no longer taking time to take care of my personal health, and I'm overweight, I'm not healthy, I feel like crap because I'm not taking the time to do different things. And that, I think that's where when we can peel back those layers of what does no time really mean? Where's that real dissatisfaction? What is that really causing in your life in terms of what's really significant and painful to you?
Well, and I think that's what people have to decide. They pinpoint it. So they're like, oh, well, the phone's always ringing. I have to answer the phone. I have to be available for my customers. I always have to do this. Well, okay, that's one belief system. But what impact does that have? When do you turn it off? When do you, go home? When do you find the time? Well, and I always like that. There are certain things that are emergencies when people need to know, but are they every day? Are they the anomaly or are they the normal?
Mm.
So I think with this, Tanner, no time kind of goes back into that same conversation. So if you're in the middle of doing something 4 times a day, and 4 times a day you get interrupted to do something else, whether it's a phone call, whether it's an email, whether it's, I don't care what it is, but let's just use that math equation for a second. So you have 4 times that you're disrupted doing it. Now, most people here would probably tell me they get disrupted what, Kat? How many, when you're talking to business owners, what is it? 8, 10, 12 times a day?
Easy. Yeah.
All right, so we'll use 4 for this. So just think about this for a second. If you take 4 times the average of 27 through 45 minutes to get back on track. So 27 to 45, let's just call it 37.5 minutes. All right, who's got a calculator? 37.5 times 4, we are at 2 hours and 30 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
2 hours, 30 minutes of complete wasted time without anything else going on. This is just a simple mathematical equation. It is proven psychology that when we're interrupted by anything, it takes 27 to 45 minutes to get back on track. So just that math equation, you have just wasted 2 hours and 30 minutes of your day. How many people that are going to watch this could use an extra 2 hours and 30 minutes today?
Yeah.
And that goes back to, oh my gosh, I'd have time to do this. Oh my gosh, I'd have time to do, you could have for 2 hours and 30 minutes. What more could we do during the day?
Of focus time. 2
Of
hours and 30 minutes of like true focused time, not just extra time to have extra time.
Exactly. There is a book out there called The Ultimate Sales Machine. It's written by Chet Holmes. I don't remember which chapter it is, but believe me, there's one chapter on sales and there's a bunch of other chapters on pig-headed discipline. Pig-headed discipline. In order to get this stuff back, you have to have pig-headed discipline to treat yourself better. And again, we've all done this, right? So I know that I've been working on when I'm in the middle of doing something, because I can be distracted by air on any given day, that I don't answer my phone. It'll sit here and ring and I just hit it because I need to stay focused.
Yeah.
So how, Kat, for you and Tanner, for you, how do you practice that pig-headed discipline?
I mean, for me, it's, the phone, I always want to have it close to me because that's how we get people. But it does distract me, it does pull me away because then I'm checking in and then I'm like, there's so many ways that people communicate with us, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. So I feel like I have to check it. But I feel like now what I want to do is have kind of like my quiet time. I'm like, you have to have, this items done. So just put it away. So perhaps not turning it off, but do not disturb. I think that's, for a set time, just having that set schedule. I think that's crucial. And I had one of the ladies at the conference on Zoom say, I think my biggest task is how do you like, she was like, I need to figure out what's urgent and not urgent, because I'm having a hard time with that, because I feel like everything is urgent, but no, it's not. So she was going to work on that, just figuring out what is actually urgent and what is not.
That's a great,
I think that's important.
So how do you guys, Tanner, I mean, for you, how would you define urgent and not urgent for the listeners out here?
I'd say it first starts with understanding where your time's going.
Right.
Without knowing where we're currently at, we only have the perception of what's in our mind. So to answer the first part of the question on what do I do or what have I done, because it's been a year-long process and continues to be a process to get better, not say perfect, but get better at understanding the time management piece. And it goes back to the simplicity of, first we have to know where our time's at. Doing a time log during a day or a week and actually understanding where is our time going, so that we can then start to understand how much time is being dedicated to each task and then prioritizing them. Once we get everything written out and we can see that down on paper, then I think it becomes easier. Now, it won't always be super easy, but easier to determine that priority level. There was I saw an activity on, it was really about personal values, things like that, but I think it could apply here. So you actually, if you have a partner or somebody else that can do this prioritization with you, actually have them read out the list and give you two and say, okay, here's task A, here's task B, which one is higher priority? Respond to that. They'll move it on the list. They'll use that next one, they'll use that one and the one below it. Which one of these is higher priority? And kind of run through that entire list. It may take 20, 30 minutes to go through that, but then you can't physically see the list, which then allows that separation from what you think should be important or should be urgent, should have that higher priority. You can just take it one step at a time. So when you look at the list at the end, you have a much more accurate picture of what that prioritization level is. From there, then we can start scheduling it appropriately, putting it onto a default calendar. And I know I've gotten very diligent about the default calendar, and it's not a stagnant thing that is, here's my default calendar, it's good for the year. It's every quarter our goals, our objectives shift and change depending on where we're at. So that calendar is updated at least quarterly, if not more frequently than that, to ensure that the highest priority pieces are scheduled and blocked in. And then it comes down to staying accountable to it. There was a while there where, for me personally, I had to send my calendar and my daily action list to a third party. I had a coach that I sent it to on a regular basis to get in that habit of being accountable to what I actually put on the calendar.
Sweet. And how'd that work?
It was really challenging for the first month and a half of sticking to it, staying accountable, remembering to send it. But getting into that habit, being able to shift away from doing that every day or every week, this last quarter, much more regimented on sticking with what was most important. And the progress over the quarter in personal life and business and anything else shifted dramatically because that consistency on what was highest priority actually took place the way it needed to. More frequently, not every time. I will not sit here and say that it was perfect every single day, but it was a much higher congruency with what was on the schedule versus what it had been prior.
Nice. So maybe that's an opportunity for those of you that are listening to this. If you're having trouble with that part of it, everybody on this call can be an accountability partner. Everybody here can help you with that type of accountability. Because like Tanner said, I did the same thing years ago with my coach. And if I didn't send it to, the question you have to ask is, what is it you want to happen? Because through all of this, you have to decide for yourself what's the most important thing, what's urgent, what's not. But even deeper than that, you have to functionally make a decision that you actually want something different. That's the hardest part right there. Making that decision, flipping the switch, deciding that you want something different. How many times have you heard that? I want something different, but I don't want to do it. And I'm okay with that.
And that's where we go directly back to what's on the board. that formula for change, dissatisfaction times vision plus the first step has to be greater than resistance. If we're not clear on where we need to go, yes, we can have all the dissatisfaction in the world, but if there's no clear picture on where we're headed, that the V vision in this formula, we're still not going to change. We're not going to make that choice to change, because 10, 100, whatever number you want to put on dissatisfaction times 0 is still 0. So we have to really make sure that we understand where we're headed and get very clear on that as well.
Nice. Very nice. Excellent. Anything else you got to talk about on the board behind me, or do we want to add to it?
There's so much we could add to it.
We could,
but
and
I don't want to go too deep. For anyone that is choosing to take a moment to watch this, I think the biggest piece is what is one action item? What is one thing that you can take from this conversation and start to apply? Trying to do 100 things at once becomes very ineffective. But if you can take one thing from the conversation that we just went through and start applying it this next week, that's where we're going to start seeing momentum and movement moving forward.
Mhm.
That's exactly it. That is exactly it. Momentum. It's over there on the board too, right? You have to
Yes.
move. You have to move consistently. You gain some momentum. You get some consistency, and then it multiplies.
Yeah.
Kat, anything you've got questions on that you saw at Growth Club, or any of the mindset type things that we've gone through, or anything like that? We can certainly use a little bit of this time to go through any of it.
How do we lower our resistance, or there's no way, we just need to have the dissatisfaction always be much larger than?
So
Great question.
great question. Absolutely great question. So have we taught Kat about perturbation?
I'm not sure if we've specifically gone through it.
So
Might
Tanner,
have been in some of the 30X, but I don't because I don't think we've gone through some of those core slides yet.
I think that's a really good point. Have you ever, Tanner, explain to her in your best guess, not best guess, you were just at training, what is perturbation? Because we're talking about resistance here, and this is a catalyst to change.
All right.
Catalyst to change. So go ahead, Tanner.
Perturbation. Think of it as the discomfort in learning something new, going through any sort of change. Really simple way to think about it is think of the last time that you learned a new skill. I give the example of the process of learning how to play guitar. And when you're learning that process of playing guitar, you're starting to figure out how to put your fingers in the right position and the strumming patterns that come along with it. And when you're first starting, that is frustrating as heck. It's really, really challenging. Things just aren't fitting right. Day in, day out, just gets very frustrating. You're out of your comfort zone. It becomes a challenge. And when you go through that process, you really have two options. First option is, the heck with it. I'm never going to learn how to play guitar. I'm done. Take that pressure off and I'm done. That results ultimately in failure. We're not learning how to play that or learn that new skill, learn how to play guitar in this case. Second option is we continue to practice every day. We have that support of those around us telling us that, hey, we can do this, keep working at it. It will get easier. Just stick with the practice, stick with that discomfort. And eventually one day that starts to get a little bit easier and a little bit easier, and a little bit easier, to the point where now all of a sudden you're playing guitar. That is really the process of perturbation, going through that discomfort, that uncomfortable pressure of having to learn something new and getting through to that breakthrough point where now all of a sudden you're starting to see success. It's a very easy way to do it when you're thinking of business. I think of when I first got into banking and I was handed the mortgage department, and I had more loan files than I knew what to do with. And I had a pile of loan files behind me where perturbation at its max. I was super uncomfortable. I did not know what was going on. I'd reach out to my boss and be like, I need help. I'm just very wound up, very tight, really uncomfortable. But continued with that. Let's push through. Let's get better. Let's figure out how to do this. Had that support with me, I could have easily said, nope, I'm not doing this, I quit. But pushing through that process, 3 months later, I look back and go, I've got the same number of files, but now this is easy because I continue to learn and adapt and go through that process of change. That is perturbation.
Exactly. And the only way you get past resistance, there's 4 ways to get through it. I drew this. This is the slide deck. This is what it shows. But when you're in perturbation, have you ever been, Kat, in your lifetime, have you ever been so mad that you just let it all out? Maybe you had a breakdown and you cried. Maybe you broke up with somebody and then, or break with, or you quit a job. Has that ever happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what happens after that.
I feel relief. Like I feel like something's been lifted off my shoulders. Like, you know.
Exactly. Perturbation is you end up with a break up, with, apart,
Down.
thank you. Breakdown. All of these end up, this is where you're at right here. This is the perturbation. As a client, I always use this rendition of it. Perturbation is just like a champagne bottle. What happens when you shake a champagne bottle?
I mean, explode. Yeah.
Exactly. Our jobs is to cause this. Our job is to do this. We're, as a coaching firm, it's to make people uncomfortable. As a coaching firm, our job is to help people find success because they've already quit once or twice. They've tried to do it, it didn't work. They just went the other direction. So what we're doing is we are consistently shaking the champagne bottle. We're consistently shaking them because we want them, until they get out of it. And I've made many clients cry, not on purpose, but because we ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Grown men, grown women, doesn't matter. The point of it is, but once they get through this breakdown, break apart, break with, or break up, they see clearly. They see that relief of, okay, what do we need to do next? How are we going to get there? This right here is, I don't have time. They look at, I don't have time as this right here.
Yeah.
And there's never enough time. It's simply, I have to make different choices.
No, for sure. That was super helpful. That makes sense. Thank you.
Love it.